Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into health and fitness. We learn how to overcome adversity, depict that first fiction, and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Don't forget, guys, at www.redefined-fitness.com, we have all of your online personal training needs. That is correct. We have just launched 2 brand new online programs. The first one is where you get to work with the trainer. We're going to develop your workouts for you. You're just going to send us what equipment you have in your area, whether it's at your house, whether it's at a gym. And we're going to get you going on the right track. The second one is an online nutrition program. This is not a diet program. I am not going to sit here and tell you to eat 5 ounces of chicken, 2 cups of rice, and 3 black olives. That doesn't do anything for you. Yeah, I might get you to lose some weight if I do something like that, but it does not create a habit. And habit is something we have driven in over and over and over again. We're going to take the foods you like eating, and we're going to help talk about it day by day, making little changes in your diet so you can do this and sustain it for the rest of your life. That's right, sustainable eating for the rest of your life so you never have to say the word diet ever again. But without further ado, we're going to get into today's episode. We have somebody really fun coming on. We're going to talk a lot about mindset, motivation, all the stuff that's really kind of get you up and going. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show Alundas. I hope I said that name right, but welcome, man. It's a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, brother. It's an honor to be able to come on.
Did I get your first name right? That's the most important.
I mean, if you're trying to say it in Spanish, brother, Alundas or Alundas, both work.
All right, perfect. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of got you into this field.
Absolutely, brother. So originally with me, I'm from Fresno, California. My parents had me when they were young. So young and dumb, kind of doing crazy things. So for me, seeing a lot as a kid and not being able to express myself. They're both alcoholics, narcissistics, abuse. Dad was abusive, mom a little. And then I had a racist stepdad in the mix. So I really just challenged beliefs. And it was, hearing things. My mom had a knee injury in 8th grade. And she always used that as an excuse, of gaining weight, of not working out, of not being the person she needed to be. And that was one of the things I hated in life was I see my dad with the nice things. My dad is taking other supplements that helped him and crazy jacked, and I'm like, oh, and he would tell me these things as a kid. So it was me, conditioning to think of it one way, but I was like, hey, this is my perception of winning. And not necessarily that, but it was like, I went through that process. So got older, went into the Marine Corps, still battling a lot of these things that happened back then. In my case, had a life-changing event while I was on boot leave. My stepdad thought my mom was having an affair and almost shot my wrestling coach within a centimeter from his face. So it spiraled me into, drinking a lot, and I was drinking a gallon of whiskey. But the funny thing at the time and kind of where I was as a person, like I was working out twice a day and I was jacked, so in my head, I was like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm killing it because I look good. This is the best my body's ever been. And I'm drinking like a horse, so it was something for me where it was like getting through that process. And then I tore all the cartilage in my right knee. So it was battling it because I was one of the best in my unit. And then I got injured. They pulled me off in a heartbeat. And it was like, now you're not shit because you're injured. And really like battled back with the mentality space. So when I started combating and figuring out, hey, there's some trauma under here that's underlying it. It's the inner fat kid of why some of my belief systems are like that, or why I got to prove people, or they're ego lifting, but I got injured. So now I got really bad joint problems. So maybe those 125 pound dumbbells don't feel good anymore because it's going to hurt me for the next week. So it's evolving as that, evolving as a person. I went to water aerobics and humbled myself, and those old people kicked my ass. So it was, challenging myself and learning those things. And that led me up even into my podcast now, The Winner's Paradigm, where I talk more mindset type deal and how to recalibrate your mindset, how to build these ways. But what I'm really finding out, as entrepreneurs is like, we got to be as healthy as possible for our families, so we can be there in the end, so we can just live a better life. Cause I felt like that for me, eating certain foods, getting inflammation from it, already having injuries as is. And then instead I want to eat more carbs and feel terrible, so it was really for me figuring out, hey, how am I going to live my life? And then two, I got kids, like how am I going to let my kids just see me sitting on the couch or drinking beers like crazy and think it's okay, so for me it's been a long process, brother.
Yeah, I liked we were talking a little pre-show. First, thank you for serving, but it's
Thank
just
you, brother.
a lot of entrepreneurs, and I know the show is for everybody, but it's something we've really never talked about. And I think it's about time because we're 3 years in, guys. So we're really gonna hit this topic. Entrepreneurs always put their business first and not their health first. And if I sat here and told you that I don't do this, I would be lying to all of you. So it's just important to really break down and understand how and why we need to put ourselves first. And even if you don't own a business, if you work a 9 to 5 or you work for somebody, you still see it with that. It's always, well, I'm going to take care of myself last. I'm going to work till I'm 80 because I need all this money. But then when you turn 70, 80, what do they say you have like 3 years after you retire until
Absolutely.
that's injuries really start rolling on and health issues?
And even sooner than that because of some of those things.
Yeah, so let's break this down, and I want you to kind of take point on this. Is what are some things that you've talked about, have noticed, especially let's start with the entrepreneur side, where those running their own business.
Ooh,
What are some flaws they make?
yeah. Um, and this may piss a little bit of people off. So
Yeah, it's okay, man. That's what we're here
yeah,
for.
no, I just say it as is, and if you don't like it, okay. But it kind of it it tells you. So I would say number one, we all got 24 hours in a day. So like me and you were talking about before we started this podcast, like we couldn't make it happen yesterday. That's 100% okay. You know what I mean? You go with the flow, you figure it out. Even for us, as business owners, even working those tough jobs, I work 60 to 80 hours while taking care of my daughter before I even started, my business. So it was one where you have to put the time in. I used to work 18, 20-hour shifts on deployment, and I was so stressed out, going crazy because it was a toxic work environment as well, that I needed to go to the gym. So I slept 2 hours. At the time, body's different, so I was able to do that. But it was more of the mindset thing of I worked every single day. So I made a rule with myself, like if you work, then you go to the gym. Or if you can't get to the gym because my joints are feeling bad, 20-minute ab workout. So it was really changing that internal belief in my head of that, and the reason why I did that was I was so freaking stressed out that, at one time before I got my knee injury, that's why I was, in the best shape. And then when I got hurt, that's why I was getting fat and getting bigger, so it's something I found as entrepreneurs, as business owners, that we, like you said, we put our health second to business or even last to everything. But it's really about, how dialed you are. So I talked to a couple entrepreneurs, and it was one of them where I started asking, what are some of the habits you're doing that makes you successful? And like, oh, da, da, da. And like one of the guys was going around it, and then it came out that a guru told him that he was fat, he needed to lose some weight, and he got upset about it. And I was just like, why are you upset? Then I did the David Goggins, like, well, if he's saying it, then it's probably true. And I was like, I got to do the same. But it's about leading and showing people that. So how are we leading these companies? How are we leading our kids, for instance? But we don't take the time for ourselves. We don't talk about, our routine and that. Like, you got to do the shit you don't want to do. I wake up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym, which means I'm definitely not drinking no more, because even what I'm realizing is if I go to sleep any later than 9 o'clock, it's rough for me. The next morning I feel worse. My joints worse. Right now it's getting colder. So another thing I got to come back, and figure out how I'm going to be able to get through the day. Number one. And I'm sponsored by a CBD company. So good thing is I get to put that on all day, either if I don't go to the gym in the morning, and then I can kind of coast it so I can be able to work out at night, or, push through the morning. So it allowed me to be able to adapt to myself and figure out, hey, if I can be able to do this. And that was part of it as well, is I wasn't having enough time for myself. I was going my wife needed to go to work early. She lives an hour and a half away from base because she's in the Navy. And it was like, okay, well, it's going to suck. You got to wake up at 3 so you can be able to do that, show up for your family, meditate before the day starts. So however I'm feeling, in my case, like I feel the pain in my body, acknowledge that, try to process it. So that way, I've done my job at realizing it. Hey, I don't feel well today. I'm going to do the best I can be. And then if it gets stressful with the baby, I can be able to be there. I can still be able to be there for the podcast, for the business, but you find that time to make it happen. And then two, it's really that lifestyle change of, seeing what you eat and that, you always hear it, when you go to lunch with people or someone's watching, so if you could set the example and be like, hey, this is how you do it. And like you said, when you make it more to sustainable and figuring out, and I'm getting better myself, I interviewed a vegan bodybuilder, like, hey man, like, what are you doing that is great? What are some things you're eating? Maybe I need to invest into it. He's trying to get me to go into it. I'm like, all right, I'll try it out, maybe a 70-30 split, but finding what works for you, and the only way we do that is if we challenge those things, we really work on ourselves. We figure out, hey, what's the missing link? How can we feed it into there? And that's really what I found with entrepreneurs, is you can definitely tell, where they're at on their journey. And it's not that I'm knocking them that, oh, you're not there. Like, if you're not there, hey man, like, I try it every single day. I go for a walk or I go get some air outside. Like, it's all about building that habit and finding that time. Kind of like the, going to the gym for 2 minutes type deal. Like, if that's what it takes to do, go to the gym for 2 minutes and leave, hell yeah, do it, because it's going to create that for you where you're like, I got to stay longer. I got to do this. Or, you get around the people that attract you. And then you're like, bro, I got to be able to be here, be in the best shape of my life if I'm going to be with entrepreneurs who are killing it and saying they're in the best shape of their life.
Yeah. And it just overly comes down to one word, and that's priority.
There you go.
It's at the end of the day, that's how much of a priority do you have for something. And just personally, like, working out, I so have to. It's so ingrained in me as an individual now. If I will push off meetings to work out, because it's me first. And that's one thing I've learned. But then on the flip side, it's like, then the other things kind of fall off, where it's eating a little healthier, having time to home cook. Because like you said, we're working, I'm sure we're doing the same hours, 65, 70 hours a week. So it's that all that time we're working, and then we're trying to squeeze in a little priority on top. I think I don't have kids yet, because I don't know how you do it, but it's just
and that's where accountability comes in, and that's where you own it. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's periods of time, especially with the wife who's pregnant, I'm fucking eating McDonald's and I'm eating bad, and then I realize it. So good thing is she kind of said that. Actually, what was funny is when she is pregnant, that was where like I started forcing myself. So hey, do you want to get the habit? Like, I want to get a salad, I get double chicken, or double chicken and steak. I got Chipotle. Like, it was me being smarter on what I was doing, and then it like drove my wife a little bit. Even though she's pregnant, she has cravings, but it allowed me to break out of that, like eating McDonald's, eating Taco Bell, because so much things I don't want to cook, brother. Like I said, I get up at 3. I have all these things going on. Things shift all the time. So it's like, it's one for me, even during the day now, like taking care of the baby. Like, I make egg bites in the morning so I can be able to warm those up. I'll get those healthy sandwiches and like really look what's in there. Okay, cool. So kind of switch it up. So like, if I need this alternative, it's either going to be healthy or I'm not going to eat it. And that's kind of been forcing myself as well to do better. Is I used to do that. And that's where I'd be admitting it, is like, hey, like, if you're there, man, I've been there. I just recently did that 6 months ago. And that's why I'm dialing it in now, because I realized, how can I just be out here saying that? And I'm eating McDonald's all the time, and that, I'll work on it on myself as well. So I don't have to go through those things.
Yeah. And I would guess the question would be, or maybe I already know the answer, but I kind of want you to talk about it more.
Absolutely,
Is, as an entrepreneur, if let's not putting my health first, and I'm putting whatever my work is first, and I'm performing at, I guess it's not a question, it's more a statement, but I'm putting 80% into my mind. Is like, how can you put 100% if you're not taking care of yourself first? Because then your mind's not ready to go. If you're not getting those 8 hours of sleep, if you're not drinking enough water, if you're not working out, if you're not giving time for self-care, you don't give 100% at work. And I could talk about this all day, because I've been there time and time again. And then the weeks that I'm putting too much work in and I'm not getting enough sleep and it's starting to burn me out, I feel it. And then it just affects like your entire day, your entire week, and you're mentally checked out. So I guess more, how can we get across, and how can we help people to teach them that this is something that needs to come first? Because then you're not doing your 100%.
I love the way you said that. And I would say, first test it out for you. Test out kind of how it is. Like I do these experiments all the time. I really did it this week because I was talking to my breathing coach, my breathwork coach, and it was just like the more self development I did, I started realizing these things. So I'm asking this dude because he's incredible shape and takes care of his body, former firefighter for 20 years. And I'm like, hey man, like I got all these injuries, like just messing with them, like and not necessarily make an excuse, but like how do you do it? And it was really freaking that. He's like, you need to test it out, figure out for you. And he's like, I'm just telling you now, you sleeping 3 to 4 or 5 hours is not sustainable and you're gonna burn out. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And like Thursday, just extremely tired. So it was already realizing that, hey, like if I don't put this time into my body, if I don't eat cleaner, I don't feel better. They always say like they look good, feel good, but it's true though. Like you get a workout in, regardless if it's a shitty workout or not. Because I've had 2 shitty workouts this past week because how bad my body's felt, how bad my joints were. But I got through the workout and then I felt better after, and I was able to get rid of that brain fog. Definitely, I realize that all the time, especially when I want to roll out of bed and then go jump into something. I'm not fresh as I should be. Haven't took that time to wake up to that. Yeah, you can drink coffee, but it's not going to do the same as, clearing it. Because that's something people think too. Well, I'll just drink this coffee and I'm going to be up. Like, I know for me, that's not. You got to know your body and that. And the only way you know your body is if you take that time for those certain elements.
No, I just did it. What a difference rolling out of bed drinking coffee to wake up doing it than it is. Personally, I like working out first or
Same.
doing something else to kind of get my body going. That really brings me in 100%. Or like it's actually hysterical. You can ask my employees. I have them kind of like follow me while I work out because that's when I do my best thinking. So I'm just bouncing ideas off of them as I'm working out, and they're like just trying to. It looks like a comedy scene, I'm sure. Follow me around as I'm hitting different sets and stuff.
No, I do the same. Uh, I got better there. So usually for me, it was journaling and not putting it on paper and having these thoughts. So that's kind of what I do. So when I'm in the gym, like, and my wife called me out one day because we went to the gym together. And then I'm like, I posted something on Facebook and it was just a long paragraph. And then she's like, aren't you at the gym? And I was like, oh, I have this ahead, but I'm thinking in the gym. So in my case, like in between sets, I read this long post. I want to post this real quick. And then I went back to the workout, but I'm like, all the way through. And the reason why I need to post it because I'm on to the next thing that I need to clear about, and I needed to ask myself, it was about kind of like the entrepreneur thing because the dude said he was killing it in business. And then, hey man, and I'm like, okay, so what's kind of your workout routine work lately? And I'm like, I'm just asking because you got so many things going on. For instance, like my business partner, he thinks that I shouldn't be going to the gym and lifting weights. He said it takes way too much time. He has this, I forgot what the bar is called, but he has a bar. He can switch it into all these different things and he can do, a hit workout in 20 minutes or 10 minutes and then be able to be done for the day. So it's like me talking about what someone else does to teach, you know what I mean? And be like, hey, if you got 10, everybody has 10 minutes. You can force yourself to have 10 more minutes. It shouldn't be an issue. And that's where he was like, oh, I don't need to do that. But I was saying, hey, for me, I like going to the gym. It's the fact of getting out of there. I like lifting weights. I had to evolve as in wanting to do it because of my body and the way that my injuries were. So yeah, if I need to be able to cut down, I can get the bar too, and I can be able to do a workout like that. And lately, what I've liked doing is just 20-minute ab or 10-minute ab routines and putting myself through pain because that's abs is not what I want to do, but that's what's going to get my body there. So it was kind of teaching this guy and being like, hey man, like this is what you can do. Because I know a lot of times it's easy to be like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'm the dude that will say, yeah, I'll do abs when I get home, and then you don't do the abs.
Yeah, that's my favorite workout. So that I'm always doing. That's never
Yeah,
an issue.
yeah. That's why I put it on I have it's called Habit, and the app pops it up. So I have that every day. I have it like twice. So I'll have it like at 8:30 because we put the baby down at 9. I like to go to sleep by like 9:30. So I'll put that there so I can be able to do it. If not, like that shit's going on at 11 o'clock because then I know I'm up. You know what I mean? So 11 o'clock comes around. I'm like, fuck, I could be abs again. All right, let me get this workout in.
I love that. That's pretty cool. It kind of just gets there and sits and reminds you on it. I want to take a quick break for our sponsor, and we'll be right back. And what I want to do on the flip side is I want to talk more specifically to those working like jobs, like corporate jobs. I think that's something that's really under talked about and something we really need to pinpoint and bring home. So take a quick break, guys, and we will be right back.
For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you can do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the redefined difference.
Hey guys, and welcome back. We're going to talk about the 9-to-5ers or those that work. I kind of feel like 9 to 5 doesn't exist anymore, but those that are working corporate jobs, they're not running their own business. They're doing 40 hours a week, 45 hours a week. They're raising a family. The typical American. I think it's just a topic that I see all the time, but it's hard to address. It's hard to get an answer from. And I'm gonna start this conversation by an example. I know person A, and we're not gonna say names, but an individual, and I think this goes for a lot of individuals. They work their 40 hours a week. They say they have no time in their day, then they go and just do whatever throughout their corporate career. They prioritize that work. They hang out with their family. They don't take care of themselves. They get closer to that retirement age, and I'm going to work an extra 5 years because if I work an extra 5 years, then I get this out of retirement, and it gets them up to age 70. But by the time they hit age 70 and they're ready to retire, they have 5 medications they're on. They barely have a quality of life. So then now all of a sudden, when it comes to prioritizing themselves and all that retirement age they thought they were going to have, yeah, they may live a longer time, but then they don't have the energy or the capability to do all those things they thought they were going to do after retirement, like travel or go on this excursion, because now they're too sick to go do that. And I feel like this is a lot of people, not just one specific person. So let's start there and talk about what's this type of individual going to do, or how can we kind of break that cyclical habit from happening?
I love this question because this is where I go in with people and they may not like it. It's about, again, we talked about it earlier, priority in figuring out what works for you. I just feel like a lot of people who work the 9 to 5 or and I've done it myself. So that's why I get irritated is people be like, oh no, 40 up, bro. That's not shit. Like I was working 60 to 80, which is double that. You know what I mean? So I was still figuring out time because sales, I need it. You know what I mean? I need to be able to calm down. I need to be able to decompress, be the best that I can be. For me, I hate waking up, and I'll say it flat out. I hate waking up early, but I feel so much better to hit the phones being woken up early because then I have the tolerance, then I have the patience versus like the first call. Like if someone's already complaining, I'm like, bro, it's fucking 5, 6 in the morning and you're complaining about your problems already. Like you're not going to do anything for yourself. So it's one for me where it's like, hey, I got to even know myself to when to step back. I've worked those hours. I did home improvement sales to where I was home at 11, 12 at night because I covered 3.5 counties in San Diego. And then it was difficult as heck because you had to be able to either pack your meals, and in the heat, they could have been spoiled or going bad. So good luck on a lot of things that you're eating. And then it was, so like that's where I got faster. That's where I got smarter with fast food, and like Chick-fil-A sandwiches or wraps, or Wendy's has this salad that I like with strawberries, or different chicken sandwiches. So it was like getting smarter there, not eating the fries. Like I had to evolve because I didn't have the time for that. And I use that example because it shifted. One day I'd wake up at 5, one day I'd be tired as shit because I got home at midnight or at 1 in the morning. So the next day, like I would go in between one of my calls at 9 or 10, and get an hour in or 30 minutes in, whatever it took to be able to get there and be able to work on it. And I felt like when you figure out what works for you and kind of dialing in on your time and that, like, regardless, you got to do it. So if you're not a person who wants to be in order of that, like literally write out your day and just systematically be like, all right, what am I doing? How am I spending my time? You'll figure out throughout that day that you have some time to be able to do it, because I drove to and from work, which is 40 minutes there, 40 minutes home. So that adds on to it, to where even when I got home, it was 7:30, 8:30 at night. And then I'm like, well, I want to go to sleep by 10, so instead at 11, 12, I was still up late, but I'd rather stay up that late and be able to get that workout in than to, put it to the side. I know one thing is, like, me and my wife were working like crazy, and that was our bonding time when we first got married. We had our first apartment together. Was we would go to the gym at 10 o'clock at night, and it was just, that's what it took, because we both had busy schedules, but we made it a priority to show up for each other.
Yeah, priorities is kind of key, and it's something I've talked about in a previous episode. But it's like, take away that half an hour. I literally had this conversation with a client yesterday, and he's telling me, like, you don't understand, you don't have kids, and I work 8 hours. It's an hour commute, so that's 9 hours, and then I spend time with my kids because that's my priority. I was like, I love it. And he's like, at that point, I put them to bed at 9, and then me and my wife only get an hour together, so we just watch TV. And I was just like, wouldn't it be better if you maybe not every night, but at least the nicer nights, you went for a walk for that hour with your wife? And now you're prioritizing healthier habits, and now you're having more of a bonding opportunity instead of just staring at a TV, which then on top of that, now you don't look at blue light anymore. So now it's going to help you sleep better at night. So it's just more of a win-win-win to help wind you down doing those walks than it is watching the TV.
I like that you share that, and that's something I'm working through. So my daughter, she needs to be outside. She needs to be out of the house every single day. She's been like that since she was born. So we fail, some days, but she needs to be able to go outside. So it's funny, like, we take her on a walk, and then she'll just go to sleep, or she'll just relax. Like, she likes the outside. I'm like, all right, so you're gonna be like me. I'm gonna be like outside meditating. You're just chilling, looking at the stars, because that's how meditation happened for me, was looking at the stars every night. And me and my wife used to do that. So it was one of those where it was like being there and then getting to the point where I start getting more dialed in and realizing that, hey, quality time is needed. So I don't watch Netflix or anything like that. It's difficult to be able to put that in. I watch a show, Marvel, I watch something, and then I'm just not interested in it anymore because of everything else. Or I'm like, oh, I can watch this TikTok of this, or nutrition, or I can be able to watch his YouTube videos. So it's one for me where it's like, all right, I got to get off the phone and then be patient with the wife. So I try to get too dialed in, or every night do that. And I went to that point where, like, I wasn't even showing up for my wife. So I recently watched Stranger Things with her, and that was like the first show I watched in a long time, because it was, taking the time to be there for her, but figuring out, like, hey, we still got to get this walking. We still got to do all these different things. But that's okay. You can still get up early and work. You can still be there for your kids. My breathing coach, she was just like, well, let me give you one. Like, why can't you just include your kids in the working out? And I'm like, dude, I got a 9-month-old. He's like, you could do crunches and hold her, and she's probably gonna get a kick out of it. I'm like, that's a damn good point. Like, I'm making excuses for things that I can control on that, and when they get older, like, your kids are gonna love that, or even if they don't, like, all right, let's go for a walk, let's go to the park, so you can be able to do what you got to do, but they can still express themselves and be included.
Yeah, and that's the biggest way of doing it, is kind of building this all, like, inclusive environment. Like you said in the beginning of the episode, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. And
you really do. Like, I think about that. Honestly, I thought about that for this weekend. Like, I had so much that I wanted to get done. What's funny is I had like 7 interviews on Friday, and then I had 2 extra that got rescheduled into yesterday. So I had 5 yesterday, and I was kind of sad at the end of the day. because I looked through and I was like, man, I wanted to do this. Like, I needed to get this new podcast moving, and I like looked at it and I was like, yeah, but more important things popped up. Like, yes, this podcast, I said I want it by the end of this month. That's not gonna happen now. But more important things happened with the business today. So I was just like, the matter of that, I spent 2.5 hours with one of my good friends, and we're like talking about my business and getting that consult work where she can be able to help me and say, hey, this is what you need to do. Like, that was well needed. So I needed to shift kind of the day. Good thing is I went during the day because we rescheduled. So it's kind of perfect. We rescheduled and I was like, you know what? I want to get a second workout in. I did abs this morning. I'm going to go to the actual gym now and lift because I have a little bit of time, and that's going to make me better for these next 3 podcasts I have. So that was what I did when we started getting flexible. I was like, man, I'm going to go to the gym. Usually I do that. Baby's not old enough to put her in the daycare, but eventually, it's probably going to be 2 years now because we're going to have another little one on the way. So I'm going to have to wait till that one's 2. And then,
Congrats, man.
But thank you, brother. So it's really like figuring out, hey, when could you do it? What kind of time? I don't like home workouts. It's just worse on my joints. I don't like doing pull-ups as much anymore. So it's one of those where it's like, all right, I may need to do that sometimes. I need to work into it, working on the home gym, because I feel like, definitely that's what people need is a home gym. That way you just have what you need to do it at home. I know that the factors there, but yeah, you can just close the door, leave the door open and get your workout in, do what you got to do.
Yeah, I think that kind of summarizes the whole thing. It's like really pushing up priorities. Like you even said, I even pushed you up yesterday. It came to, I got my workout in. I did my work, and then I had a conversation with somebody that wasn't on my calendar.
That's
And
awesome.
that conversation ended up being like really helpful to me. And then I had to go meet someone to go over accounting. And then that conversation went double what I thought it was going to be. But it's all about prioritizing, like learning to prioritize more of spending time with my wife. So then I was like, all right, let me reschedule the podcast so I'm more mentally in tomorrow, not sitting here worrying about, are we doing enough time to go on our date still? And then prioritize that and make it work. And I think it was way better of a choice. We did it today anyway.
There we go. Yeah, same for me. And even after this, I got another call because it's a men's group on being the best dad I can be. So it's one of those where it's like I had to figure out time for that. So it sucks because Saturday is my day to sleep in. And then Sunday, I'm like, yo, you got to get up regardless because you got to get a workout in. Then at 5:30 or 6:30 now. It was 5, but I had to switch the times. 6:30, have a group to be able to show up for my family. So it's like, if I can't show up for my family, how am I going to show up for these other men and be like, hey, man, like, this is what I'm going through or that, or show up sluggish. So it's even motivated me more because I'm like, bro, I'm in a community and I have people that have answers. And it's one of those, and we talk about that stuff all the time. The dad bod. And I'm like, what I hate is like, we accept those things. Like, we're just okay with it. It is just like, yeah, but I'm like, what? Think about us. You know what I mean? Like, what about the points where we weren't okay with that? We're like, we're very upset at ourselves over that. As entrepreneurs, we're like, man, da 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 da, or whatever. Just as people, we looked at that, and then now we're just like being okay with something that we're not okay with. Whether you're out on your journey, it's about being healthy so we can be there longer, and that's what I'm realizing slowly.
I'm going to start wrapping this up, but I want to ask you, like, just in general, putting this together, what would be that talk you would have with somebody about getting the right mindset to really prioritize himself? How would you approach that conversation?
I don't remember who said it. It was Brad Lee. Brad Lee said it. So he said the way you can ask people on what they like, and it's reverse psychology type deal. So ask, like, if you can be the best version of yourself at the beach, what would that look like? And like pretty much everyone's going to say, oh, and you're going to ask the details, what would that look like? Who would be with you? What would you be wearing? What would your, physique look like in that? Everybody pretty much is going to be like, oh, I'm going to have a fit body. I'm going to be chilling on the beach. I'm going to have a drink in my hand. I'm going to be, whatever it is. So I like that because it really gave you perspective on like what people are looking for. And that's why I say like that, I do either that or I say, if you were to be, where your definition of success is, what would that look like? What are some of those habits that you're going to have? What are some things that are going to go into that? What are some things that are going to be your non-negotiables? Like, for instance, my business partner, Zach, he has A5 method. So they train you in mind, body, soul, relationships, finances. And one of the things he talks about is non-negotiables. And every single day. So when me and him were talking one day, he was just like that. And he goes, we're asking about non-negotiables. And I'm like, bro, I put abs in my non-negotiables. And he starts laughing a little bit. And I'm like, bro, I don't do it. I could do it when I get home. And I was like, I don't care. And now that turned into a year. And now I'm doing that. You know what I mean? So I figured when I was intentional with that, like on deployment, I forced myself to run 10 minutes a day and to do abs every single day. And it turned out amazing at the end. So it was one for me where I was like, hey, if I can be able to implement this in, if I can make it a habit, hey, I got to do abs every single day. And I just learned, even like for 75 hard bar, I used to get discouraged because of my right knee. I just learned that you can do stretching for 45 minutes and that counts as a workout. Like, these are the things that we need to be able to know, what we can be able to do for ourselves. So you go to that mindset factor, you really dial them in and you're like, if you were to be at this point, what kind of things, what are going to make you successful? What is that? Even look at your people successful in your field or in that, ask them those questions. And that's kind of the cool thing about podcasting was I've been fortunate to be able to have those conversations and ask the 7-figure entrepreneur, like, hey man, why are you so jacked now at 49 than you were in your 30s? And he's like, you know what? I didn't take care of my body. I didn't care then. I wanted to eat whatever I want. I wanted to drink whatever I want. But then I realized health is wealth. And that's where he started flipping it around. So it was one thing for me where I'm like, man, if this millionaire is saying that he did that earlier on, why don't I go for that work as well?
Yeah, health is wealth, man. And I love how you're sitting here talking about abs, and I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, yeah, I'm just worried about these people not making it to 60. Fuck abs. I'm seeing all these people just like overwork themselves, and I look at them and they're so unhealthy. It's like, I don't care if you're a multi-billionaire. If you continue the way you're going right now, you will never be able to enjoy a penny you worked for.
Oh, yeah, 100%, brother. And for me, I have severe joint pain in my knees, elbows, shoulders, hips, um, bad back problem, like all these problems with my body. I'm 24. And so it was one for me where I was like, I'm 24 and I have more life problems than a lot of people have. I got to really dial in this stuff. I never planned to live longer. Now I got a wife and kids. So yeah, now I want to stay a little bit. You know what I mean? If I'm feeling this terrible every single day at 24, well, what's fucking 44 going to look like? So that's where I was just like, all right, I need to start being better, doing the shit I don't want to do, educating myself in that, stretching every single day. Like, all these things go into that factor. And it was something that I was content. And this comes, some of those earlier beliefs, like my mom, I was content of what I am, that it steered me away from what I need to be or what I need to become, or, whatever it is. So in her case, like, she injured herself in 8th grade. Like, yeah, she's like 45 now. So that was something that stopped her whole life. I'm not going to do that to myself, where I watched it happen. And I realized that I say I don't want to do it, but I have a right knee injury from the Marine Corps. My joints fall apart. And then now I'm going to be doing the same thing, not living up to the best I can be. So in my case, it's like educating myself, realizing that. And like you said earlier, we got to make things sustainable. And that's what I found as well for myself. Like, I got to extremely dial in on the sustainability because like we said, sleeping 4 to 5 hours, 3 hours, like, it's not going to work for me. I'm going to feel bad. I don't get sleep, then I start eating bad. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, was in the military, I had to work 24 hours. I realized, like, I had to get really strategic on working the 24 hours. If I worked more after that and figured out how I was going to work on my sleep, because if not, I'd be ruined for the next couple of days. So it was figuring out what worked for my body and then putting that time into it.
Yeah, and you pretty much nailed it on the head. So I'm going to actually just follow right into the next 2 final questions, which is going to lead perfectly. The first one is, if you were to summarize this episode in 1 or 2 sentences, what would be your take-home message?
Again, we mentioned it hundreds of times, probably. Prioritize, figure out, what's important to you, what values, what it looks like if you're, at your desired place of being, and then what it looks like, for you to be able to pass on that legacy to your kids, to your family, to whatever. So they want to know you as the hard worker who got up before everybody else, and put the time into themselves, or always, was there in the moment, but they made sure to show up for themselves. Because I feel like that's a big one, is we are there for everyone else, but we're not for ourselves. And that's why we're drinking. That's why we're partying. That's why we search for this approval, but if we can just be able to be like, hey, I'm dialed in because of who I am, the core values, my family, X, Y, and Z, have that inspiration, it's going to change the game for you.
I love it. And then the second question would be the easiest one of all. How can people find you, get a hold of you, all that good stuff?
Absolutely. So social media, Alundas_Havens. The podcast is the Winner's Paradigm Podcast, thewinnersparadigm.com. So you guys can be able to see, follow me there. Easiest way.
All right. Thank you. And thank you guys for joining us in this week's episode of Help with Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is medicine. Until next time.